Hey YouTube, 1986 Mustang. Going to be putting on a rear louver today. It's a aluminum one, comes in two pieces. I have not found any videos on YouTube on how to put these on the car, so I'm hoping to put one together, hoping it helps you guys. Give you an idea what you're getting into when you buy this or before you buy this, if you want to get into it or not. Along with the kit comes two side filler panels, two tie down plates, two hinges, two screws, two side splints, and along with the side splints they got a couple of washers tied onto these so you don't lose them. They say that you can actually paint these any color you want. It comes in matte black. But the one thing I find here is that the hardware is all brushed aluminum, so I'm going to paint these to make it match more of the louver to put it on. So I have purchased some trim paint, matte black, to paint the mounting hardware, so that when I put it on it doesn't stand out as much. So hopefully you guys find the video helpful, and okay, here we go, step one. Okay, first step, painted all the hardware here. Don't forget to wipe down all the parts before you paint it. I didn't prime these, I just put the matte black on because this stuff's pretty good and sticks on its own. If you're looking for good paint, go to an auto body shop and get their matte black or black chrome, whatever they call it. That stuff works really good. So anyways, I got these painted. We're going to let those dry, and now we're going to put the two pieces of the louver together. So to put the two sides of the louver together is pretty straightforward. Make sure you put them down on something soft. They do scratch pretty easy. Either on carpet or cardboard. The two ends, there's channels on the bottom piece and it just slides in. The thing you need to be aware of is you need to remove the screw that comes shipped with, because this needs to slide in underneath the top piece, and again on the outer side is a rail, so it just kind of slides in between here. So I'm going to put these together and we'll see how that goes. So the two sides went together pretty easily, not too bad. And thing to note here, when you put the centerpiece together, make sure you get a nice snug fit before you tighten up the screw, and watch you don't over tighten this because this is aluminum and it will strip very easily. The next thing I'm going to do is I've wiped down on the side here where the side splints are going to go, and now I've got these painted up, so these are really good and they'll blend a little better with the louver as opposed to the braided brushed aluminum. I'm going to put those on there and put one on each side. Before I put these on, I'm going to make sure that the two sides are fit together as tight as possible to make sure they're nice and snug. So we'll get those on. So the side splints are on. Thing to watch for when you put them on is make sure you put them down far enough so that they're not sticking up this way, so that there's no chance of these splints actually touching the window when you put the louver on the vehicle. So these went on pretty easy, not much to it. And next thing, we start mounting this on the vehicle. Alright, so this is where the challenging part comes. I got the louver on the car, it's just sitting on there right now. On the bottom corners I just put some tape just to help preventing my molding from getting scratched. I essentially thrown the instructions away and coming up with my hybrid way of attaching this. The instructions seem to be a little disjointed. What I've done is I put the two upper brackets on, and if you look at the louver right now, you can see that neither of the outer edges are sitting on the window because this thing is bowed. And anyways, I've done a lot of back and forth to try to get this thing squared up as good as possible. You'll notice that on the corners there's overlap, and then coming down there's gaps, and then down the bottom again it kind of overlaps a little bit, or well, actually not quite in the bottom. And again, same thing on the other side. You'll see that there's overlap on the top. We got gaps coming down the side and a little bit of a gap in the bottom. So I've tried my best to get this squared away. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the louver off. I have these top hinges. They're actually underneath the molding a little bit, so they'll stay in place. I'll take the louver off, and what I'm going to do is I have some grease pencils here, and I'm going to take a grease pencil and I'm going to mark around where the hinges are. And I'm going to get some alcohol out and clean the window down good, let that dry for a couple of minutes, take the tape off and actually put these top hinges on and let them dry for 24 hours. I tried putting the screws in this, but because the louver is so bowed, they just keep popping up on each odd side. So I'm going to start at the top, work my way down. I'm going to do the top hinges, going to mark them now, and we'll see what that looks like in a second. All right. So I've outlined around the hinges with the grease pencil, And so we have a nice clean mark of where the hinge needs to go. And what I'm going to do now is very carefully with alcohol clean the window, and then take the tape off the back of the hinge here and put those on and let that dry 24 hours. I just want to make sure that the hinge is not going to pop off while I'm trying to get the other adjustments done. So again, so I'm going to remove the other hinge as well, clean both underneath, take the tape off, put the hinges on the vehicle, let it dry 24 hours, and then come back to that. Okay, so here we are the next day. I got the hinges taped on. They've been sitting there for a little while, so hopefully those hold well. And essentially the next piece I'm going to be putting in here is this side bracket. If you follow instructions, they tell you to put the filler plate in first and then do the bracket afterwards, but I don't know who wrote the instructions, but there's one little problem here. This is taped on, and if you're going to put this on the side and tape it on, and then you're going to put this bracket underneath here, you're going to have a hard time getting that underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the bracket first, and then I'll do the side filler afterwards. So I'm going to get the louver now. I'm going to set it up on the 2 screws on the hinges and figure out where the brackets need to sit. Okay, so I put the louver on the vehicle, put the 2 top screws on the hinges, left them very loose, so it allows me to adjust, make sure these things are straight. And I've got the mounting brackets here, and one of the things you'll notice underneath, I don't know if you can see this, but the angle is different on the mounting bracket than it is on the louver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend these brackets and make sure I get the same angle as the louver has, and then I'm going to go back and reinstall those again and figure out where they need to go. So I got the brackets mounted. They're underneath the windowsill here, and you can see that they're actually sitting nice and good contact with the louver on the inside, and that's on both sides like that. A couple things I've noticed now while it's sitting on the bracket, there's enough of a gap here I can stick my finger underneath the louver and the window. In the center of the windshield here, where the center bracket is on the louver, it's enough here I could actually get my whole hand underneath. When it gets up to the top, it's actually sitting on the window, and so there is play within the bracket, so that I'm guessing once I get these brackets taped down, I could actually put some pressure on the louver and tighten that up a little bit and close the gap underneath, and the gap is on both sides here, you can see. So I'm hoping that's going to work. It seems to me that there's too much of a bow in this louver at the bottom, and that's causing me a little bit of grief, and I don't know how hard I can push down on this to flatten that out. But the thing is, as well, as I flatten it out, the gap here will become less as well from to the windowsill. But I gotta watch I don't put too much pressure on these taped brackets, because I don't want them popping off either. So I'm gonna take the louver off now, leave the brackets where they are. I'm gonna mark them up, and I'm gonna tape those down, let the louver, let that bracket sit for 24 hours again, just because there's gonna be a lot of force on those, and I don't want them popping off prematurely. I've already in advance clean the window with alcohol, so that way any lines I draw with my grease pencil should not get erased, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll come back at you. Just a real quick addition here. So I have now marked off where the bracket's going to go, and I've removed this side here, so we can see that there's going to be, that this thing's going to go underneath the windowsill by about 3/4 an inch, half an inch, which is not bad. One of the things I noticed when I'm taking the tape off, it's really hard to get a hold of the corners on these. So it's a little tip for you. If you have a knife, good sharp knife, you just kind of angle underneath and just pick the corners off really easy with a knife. As you find as you get older, you lose your dexterity and you can't see as good, so that'll help a little bit for you, older folks anyways. So while I'm giving a day for these hinges to firmly adhere to the window, I'm going to put the filler strips in, and you can see how that's going to fit in there like that. And by the way, the notch goes to the top, and what I've done here now is I just marked with my orange grease pencil on the filler strip from between those 2 spots. I'm going to actually remove the tape just so it sits a little more flush on the brackets. And you can see, so essentially brackets there, the filler plate, you can see the little notch in there, that's going to go in towards the bracket on the window, and that's going to go in there. So again, I've marked here where I'm going to remove the tape underneath, If you want, you could leave the tape on. I don't know if it's going to make a difference or not. We'll see as time goes on. So anyways, do that now, and then we'll come back tomorrow and see what type of luck we have in getting the louver on the car. And just to continue on the step-by-step procedure, so the hinges are taped on, the brackets are taped on, and I also have the filler plates now. They are also taped on, and everything's in there. So we're gonna wait till tomorrow, see how that goes. And the filler plates weren't too bad to put on afterwards. You may need a screwdriver, and I'd recommend you start from the bottom and you work your way up, put a screwdriver underneath, make sure you get some good clearance in there to get these past the lip of the brackets here. And they go on not too bad. And yeah, so there we go. The instructions say that if you put a little bit of soap on the filler plate, sometimes that helps it slide in place. So if you have some problems, you may consider that as well. All right, so the louver's on the car. I've attached it to the hinge and to the bracket. And one disappointing thing I've found here is all the way along the side of the louver, you can see there's enough of a gap here that my finger goes underneath. And that's all the way up to the top pretty well. And it's just sitting in the air here. And just for the record, the bracket is exactly the same angle as the louver. So outside of actually bending the louver out and changing the angle of that bracket, I'm not really sure how you're going to get that thing to sit flush, and that's on both sides like that. So one last thing I still need to do on this, I'm going to take the louver back off on the hinge and on the bracket. The instructions say put a bead of silicone around it where it's on the window, just to help prevent water from getting in there, so that you don't lose your bracket or hinge from water exposure. Anyways, I hope you find the video helpful. And just for the record, this is a Willpak Industries product made in Canada, and it is for the 79 to 93 Mustang. So anyways, hope you find the video helpful, and happy motoring.